Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth.
And I'm Zach.
And I'm Ross.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers. And Ross.
That's right. Ross, our secret brother who's been living here the whole time, of course.
We have an incredibly amount of people that live in this building, which is also a building that we don't pay any rent for.
Yes, our massive studio that has so many rooms, a cornucopia of rooms that are unfurnished. And
so it's like the old woman who lived in a shoe, right?
Yeah, except with crippling amounts of debt.
Yes.
We get a lot of pink slips from all of our creditors, and we owe the bank a significant amount of money. So
Seth, to be fair, you don't know that the old woman who lived in a shoe never got crippling amounts of debt or pink slips.
Did she have like 1 million kids?
She lived in a shoe.
With 1 million kids? I would imagine there's crippling amounts of debts anywhere. That's part of the American dream, though. If you don't have crippling amount of debt, then what are you doing?
Well, to place set everyone, dear listeners, we're joined today by Ross Benish, who is the writer for 1999, The Year Low Culture Conquered America, and kickstarted Our Bizarre Times, a new book that just came out back in April. And Ross, welcome to our show, and we're glad to have you on. Do you want to introduce yourself? And we'll talk a bit more about your book later, but maybe do a quick, brief spiel before we get into everything.
Yeah, sure. So, I have a lot of work as a journalist. I've published in tons of publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Smithsonian, The Nation, Entertainment Weekly. I've also written 4 books, the most recent one about late 90s low culture, which we're going to dive into. And I also work as a market research analyst covering streaming services. So I'm frequently quoted in the press. Sometimes I appear on TV, not good TV stations, stuff like Bloomberg or Cheddar, discussing financial impact of streaming. So I do various things, but basically they all intersect with my passion for entertainment.
Very cool. Now, before we get into our whole little discussion about your book and talking about anything that we feel like, we always talk about what we've recently been playing. And as you're the guest of the podcast, we want to hear from you first. So, Ross, what have you been recently playing?
Yeah, so I was with my nephew not long ago, and my nephew's in his 30s, so we're similar age, and we played the college football game by Electronic Arts on PS5. It's on other systems too, but it was really fun. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the college football game, but it wasn't available for like 15 years because of like all the stuff with the NCAA and payer payments. And last year was the first time it had been out since like when I was in college. So it's been interesting playing it because that was a game that I used to play annually, and when you go 15 years between them, and now that they've had back to back, it's just like wild how much stuff has changed since you last played it. Not just the graphics, but like everything you can do in the game and what they have available for each school is something I dreamed of in college but didn't have the access to it. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's a good season for football games too, as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving. It's a really good time.
We're when the episode recorded.
Recording. December still football season. It's football season until what, February, right?
Yeah, for NFL, yeah.
Yeah, for the NFL at least, for sure, yeah. Zach and I, we have a game that we play annually, and that's Tecmo Super Bowl for the SNES.
Oh, I love Tecmo. Tecmo, that's an awesome game.
We're really bad at Zach and I. We're not really into sports of any kind, and so when we play Tecmo Super Bowl, generally somebody wins via safeties, or I think that's it, really, isn't it? Like there was like technical penalties and field goals was the whole way. Yeah, the only way
we didn't
that
score
we
a
won.
single touchdown.
So if you played the original Tecmo Bowl, you got to be the Raiders and be Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Yeah, you can't stop. You can run up and down the screen. He's unstoppable.
We always try to run to the Raiders.
I think we had a no Bo Jackson rule last time.
That makes sense. It's kind of bullshit if you're playing someone in there. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have just like Odd Job and GoldenEye.
It's interesting that you noted that there has been like a decent break in the college football games, because I feel like they were such a staple in game stores. Like I remember going to game stores and always seeing it was always a new Madden, it was always a new wrestling game, and it was always a new college football game. And like there was a period of time where you stopped seeing them.
And there used to be multiple because there wasn't the exclusive. So like 989 had Game Breaker. EA, theirs was just always called NCAA football. You had multiple in basketball. There was even a college baseball game in 2005. So like college sports had like a ton of video games annually in the late 90s and early thousands.
It's cool that they are able to bring it back, and hopefully they resolve some of the...
Yeah, the players get like a little bit of money from it. You know, it's ridiculous that it was off as long as it was, but I haven't played the most recent Madden actually, so I maybe it's more similar to Madden than I realized, but like having a break from it, it's like... This has come a long way, but it's hard. God, I get my ass kicked.
I found that most sports games I find rather difficult unless it's NBA Jam,
or unless if you like play it a bunch. Like if you just hop in and someone who has been playing that they just like know how to just own you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Seth, I think it's your turn. What have you been playing?
Sure. Yeah. So recently, in the last Next Fest, I was playing the Tavern Keeper demo, which is being developed and published by Greenheart Games and released back into early access of November 3rd of 2025, which will be this year for just a little bit while longer. It's done by the same folks, Greenheart Games, same folks who did Game Dev Tycoon, and instead of managing a game development tycoon studios, you manage a fantasy tavern, and it's a lot of fun. You have to bring in like barrels of alcohol, load them into taps, serve customers what they want, and your customers tend to be like goblins, orcs, dwarves, gnomes, and all that kind of stuff. You could have a great crew of like fantasy creatures. So I had like a skeleton at one point in time working, and the best part about being a skeleton is that he didn't have to sleep, so he would just work all night and work all day, and it was great. And he like read like letters during the night. He would just sit at a table and read letters, which was kind of funny. It's a pretty addicting game. I played the demo, as I said, back in Next Fest, which was it had one scenario. In the early access, it has now 3 scenarios, and they're still developing it. I will probably end up picking it up when it comes out of early access. My backlog's a little jammed up right now, and there's just no need to just put another game on top of the backlog. I have a bad habit of doing that anyway, so I'm going to just avoid it and just track on this one. I think the only issue I have with the game is they have the characters in it everything is like a isometric 3D environment, and the characters that are in the game are missing arms like Rayman, so they just have like hands and then no arms and then their body. I guess it's their aesthetic, but it just looks like they didn't render the arms, because there's not like any real like Rayman, like he did things because his hands weren't attached to his body, like he threw his hands and stuff like that. These people just act normal except they're missing arms, which is just weird. It bothers me on my core, which is also why I'm not picking up the game in early access, but the rest of the game is good. Like it's really good. It's good enough that like I can get over the aesthetic of people missing their arms, but not good enough for me to pick it up during early access until they finish it, because it really looks like it's just like some error versus being like their aesthetic. I don't know what aesthetic you're going with missing arms, but I guess that's theirs.
Don't they need their arms to drink?
Well, so they do, but they have arms. They're just invisible.
Okay.
So like their hands move up and down as if they're attached to an arm, and it's a 3D model, right? So like there has to be an arm somewhere, and they're doing to make sure the hand moves correctly, but they just made it invisible for some reason. The rest of the body is fine. It is there. So it's just weird, and it just looks like an error, like a serious error versus like an aesthetic. It bothers me at my core, but the game is really, really good, and it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's a fun game, worth it if you like management games to check it out. And the demo I think is still on Steam, so you can still download the demo and play the first level and have fun, and then also be just mildly irritated that people are missing arms like I am. Zach, what about you, sir?
So I've been replaying Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, and mostly just because I had like extra credits on my Xbox app on Windows, and I had enough credits that I could get a gift card, and I was like, oh, I don't actually have New Colossus on PC, because I think I played it through your Steam account, Seth.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought it, and that came with the DLC, which I haven't played yet.
With the giant spider?
No. Which one's that? Is that's the first one, isn't? At the very end, you fight the giant mech.
I thought there was like one that they have like a little base. Isn't that New Colossus?
Well, New Colossus, you go to space.
Oh, what am I?
You go to.
All right, I'm gonna.
I don't know. You go to Mars in New Colossus. Yeah, it's a fun game. I've been enjoying it. I've already played it before, so it's all familiar. But I want to replay the campaign before I go through the 3 DLC, which are part of something called the Freedom Chronicles. They are 3 independent stories: The Adventures of Gunslinger Joe, The Diaries of Agent Silent Death, and The Amazing Deeds of Captain Wilkins. And all of them seem kind of fun, at least from the descriptions. Gunslinger Joe, you play as a former professional quarterback who has to fight Nazis. Agent Silent Death, you're playing as an OSS agent who has to fight Nazis. And Captain Wilkins, you're playing as Captain Wilkins who has to fight Nazis. So doing the Wolfenstein thing as you'd imagine, but with different characters as opposed to just playing as BJ Blazkowicz. I'm looking forward to trying out the DLC. I don't know if they're any good. I think I've heard that they were okay, but I'll give them a shot and see what they're like. But overall, I think I like New Colossus more than I liked the first of the Machine Games Wolfenstein games. I think it has like, it's a little bit too over the top sometimes, but I also really like the...
You like New Colossus over New Order?
A little bit.
I played 43 hours of New Order. I played 9 of New Colossus. You can clearly you can clearly see what I think of it.
Now, when I say I like it a bit more, I don't think New Order is a bad game. I think they're both very good games. I like a lot of the elements of New Colossus. Like I like the Enigma machine. Those missions are fun.
Old Blood came out right after.
That's the one with the giant spider.
That's the one with the giant spider. Maybe that's the one I'm thinking that just lives like in my head. I didn't think that there was 3 games. I always thought that there was 2 because there's Wolfenstein and then there's Wolfenstein 2. But there is Wolfenstein The Old Blood, which is a separate game but not a sequel because it's not a 2. So in my head, I just erased it, and then that's why I put the spider into New Colossus. So maybe I would like New Colossus. I played 9 hours of both Old Blood and New Colossus, so there's definitely some mixing of what's going on in the game in my brain.
That's fair.
It is what it is. Wolfenstein's great. Killing Nazis is always a fun time.
Now, getting into our interview with you, Ross, and to talk a bit more about your book, you told us a bit about it already, but really what inspired you to start work on it, and kind of what led to what the final book is.
So just to give a synopsis of what the book is, it's basically that late 90s low culture influences our world in strange ways. And I include video games in that because of the way video games were mocked and derided at the time, even though they're not perceived that way today. 99, was like when Columbine happened and video games were blamed for a lot of societal ills.
Joe Lieberman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's he was the most censorious of all the politicians at the time. And there was just a handful of moments the last like 5 years where something insane would happen, and I would think like that's like Jerry Springer is in our culture, or that's very much like Attitude Era pro wrestling but like done through the White House. So made me go back and re-examine all this pop culture I loved as a kid that was like ridiculed and perceived as being inferior, and connecting it to like today's world, and video games that have the longest chapter in the book, but the other things I cover are talk shows, porn, pro wrestling, Beanie Babies, and that's the Insane Clown Posse. That's also in there.
That's a good one to include.
The late 90s, whenever I think about porn in the late 90s, I think about like
such a fun sentence.
Yeah, how often do you think about porn in the late 90s?
More often than I'd like to admit, but
fair enough.
I think about the scramblers, because they scrambled porn on the cable signals, and you had to pay for it to be unlocked and unscrambled, but you could watch scrambled porn, and there would be like, oh, there's a boob, and it would just like be there for just a moment, and it was very taboo, obviously, especially if you were a young child during the 90s, as I was. So it was just it was an interesting thing to think about, that kids today will never have to learn about how to identify a breast as it went across the screen.
It's kind of like if you buy a car that isn't like the top model of that type of car, they'll have features, but they just won't be available because you didn't pay more. Like I have a Toyota minivan that's an XE, not a XLE. Like the XLE like automatically opens the doors, and you can see the goddamn electronics are in there, but I didn't pay more to have them. So it's like it's like the tits on the screen with the scrambling. They're there,
exactly.
you have to pay. It's like this weird paywall where the technology is blocking you from something that you should have access to.
It was something that was out of the ordinary back then, and now it's really embedded in our culture about paying for extra features for everything, period. Like even cars and video games with microtransactions and DLCs and various different, how many streaming services do we have instead of cable? It's kind of interesting that before it was almost a simpler time, definitely for sure.
Well, porn kind of got those tactics adopted, like all those little, I don't even call them subscription fees, but those add-ons Camming girls were doing that even in the 90s of getting people to pay for personalized messages and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, anything to make a buck, right? I mean,
Yep.
Now, as you alluded to, your book is broken down into different parts. I think it's 6 different parts, excluding the intro and the epilogue. Did you have a particular process in determining the order and how you wanted to address each topic?
I wish I had a better process. It was kind of haphazard, and I initially started it with pro wrestling because that out of all those 6 things, that's actually what I liked the most in the 90s. Like I was a huge NWO fan, and I watched them both. Like I like WWF too. Stone Cold is like my favorite entertainer from the 90s. So I was really into that, but I realized like that's a little more niche. And, initially I was going to kick off the book with like a 1,000-word section on Monday Night Wars TV ratings. And I'm like, very few people are going to be into this. So, I started with the more accessible things. So then, it was after I wrote the book that, Jerry Springer is at this top and Pokemon and Beanie Babies are put into the second chapter. But I didn't really know for sure how many topics I would get into when I started writing it. There are things I thought I was going to write more about infomercials, and that ended up being nothing. I didn't know if I was even going to do a chapter on porn, but then I ended up doing one. So that stuff just kind of comes together as you do a book. I've done, a few of them now. I put video games at the end though, because I felt like it was the most serious chapter and it was by far the longest. So I didn't want to bog down anyone if it was like the lead off. I'm like, well, if someone gets to this point, they already are into this.
They're invested.
Yeah, I can do twice the length at the end. If I do it at the start, I'd probably lose everyone who's not like a gaming fan to begin with.
It's actually what's interesting especially with wrestling. Zach and I actually grew up in Connecticut, which is the home of the WWE, and now was F or now
was
is
F
E,
and then,
was F now E.
Yeah.
But
it's in Stamford, right?
it is, yes, right, exactly, yeah. So whenever we'd go, drive to New York or something like that, we would you see it. The building's huge.
Yeah, I've seen it. I live in New York. I've driven to Boston, and I've seen it.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we live in that corridor. Zach's in Boston now, and I'm in Rhode Island, so we know the area pretty well. But I think growing up in Connecticut, I think just being near the proximity of the wrestling area, all my friends were into wrestling. It was just a thing. Yeah. I'd go over and they'd be watching the Undertaker, and all that stuff. I never personally got into it, but I was always on the cusp. Even throughout college, my friends were into it. It was just something that everyone was always into it. And then when I was a kid, I didn't understand that it wasn't just violence, right? When I was a kid, I thought the wrestling was more of just violence. But then as I became an adult, I understood that there was story behind it, right? It's actually something that has its epic arcs and all of this character development and all that stuff, which is always wild for me, having that switch when I was wait, it's not just dudes fighting, it's actually these are planned kind of story arcs of what the characters do and stuff. I know there's some flexibility in regards to which direction the stories can go into, but ultimately it was just wild that there was that much other things that were layered into wrestling beyond just what the sum of the parts were when you watch a match.
Werner Herzog, I remember, had did an interview where he was talking about how much he loves WrestleMania.
Yeah, with Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, Conan O'Brien, and Conan was kind of joking with him, being like, "Oh, you like WrestleMania?" And Werner breaks it down so succinctly by saying it's like watching Greek plays. It's the same type of theater you would have had in ancient times. Watching these people on stage and telling these stories in very elaborate, violent ways, but they all have their stories to them. And he says it in this his beautiful Werner Herzog.
Yeah, he says a poet must not avert his eyes to know the world that he's living in.
Yeah, exactly. It is such a fascinating thing because I find wrestling so interesting to me because it's that thing that, like Seth, I'm younger than Seth, so I wasn't watching it when he wasn't watching it, but I knew so many people into it. But watching stuff about it now, there's a YouTuber I like named Super Eyepatch Wolf who did a whole breakdown on The Undertaker, and I watched that not knowing anything about wrestling, and I was like, this is the most interesting video I've watched in my life.
I should check it out. That character has changed so much.
Yeah, he goes through the whole spread of when The Undertaker started out to he starts it off with that like final clip of the Undertaker lying down and doing the sit-up, that dramatic moment toward the end of his career. But it was really interesting to like watch this long video where I was like, I have no reason to want to watch this, but I can't stop and I need to keep going because I'm just invested. It's such an interesting world that it really is like a play, the whole way they do their stories, but very improv-y. Like I feel like a lot of it, while it's written out, a lot of it's kind of like they just got to go with the flow with how things go.
Yeah, they definitely have to do that. And in the 90s though, there was a lot of great wrestling video games, and kind of like what we're saying about the sports stuff. Now there's a little more exclusivity, like in how WWE will do their annual game. But back then, you had different games made by different publishers for different. You had like the same wrestling federation would have different games on different systems by different publishers. Like you'd have WCW would have a game by like THQ on N64, but they'd have a game by EA on PlayStation. So you'd get like 3 WCW games in a year, and then you get like 3 WWF games, and then you would have ECW, and some of those games sucked ass. There were some real good ones like WCW Revenge. That was awesome.
I love wrestling video games. I get into weird aspects of different fandoms. So like never played Warhammer. Really love Warhammer video games. Really love Warhammer lore. Never really watched wrestling. Really love wrestling video games. Is just kind of how I am. And there was an N64 wrestling game where it was like, I think it was like the NWO or WCW versus NWO or some combination.
Yeah, WCW NWO Revenge probably.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
My friend owned it, and I played the F out of it. I made this like skeleton character, like because you could do custom wrestlers.
Yeah.
But I had no context, right? So I just gave my wrestler I gave him an outfit that looked cool. I gave him an opening that looked cool. I gave him moves that looked cool, and so like I would just do these weird moves that like they didn't make sense for anyone who knew like you're like, why are you pairing this person's move with this person's move? But like at the end of the day, it was like my little Grim Reaper character, and it's like a core memory of mine that I just love that character.
Yeah, that's fun as hell.
I love that aesthetic of that era of wrestling games where, because they're so limited with graphics, all of the player models virtually look the same. So they're all just kind of like rounded people, rounded men, but they have like textures mapped on them differently.
Barrel chested.
Yeah, they're all just barrel chested, like big armed men.
Their limbs like hang out like wide from their body. Just kind of like.
I went to high school with a current person in WWE. He goes by Carmelo Hayes, and he's featured in like 3 of the most recent WWE games. And I'm like, I feel like if I didn't know he was in those games, I would play one of them like randomly and just be like, I went to school with that kid. Like I remember when he was in acting with me.
Clearly his acting paid off.
He's using it professionally now.
He was an incredibly talented actor. And he was really like into like dance and stuff like that. So you can see it with his performance now.
That's like one of the few careers that you could be like, beyond like going down just dance or just acting. Like if you're like, I want to blend all these dance and movement skills and acting, what can I do? Oh, wrestling. Like
as we've alluded to, your book is a variety of topics. I mean, you mentioned Insane Clown Posse. I know you also talk about things like the X-Files, Jerry Springer, and stuff like that, and video games, of course. Did you find one topic particularly harder to write about or to do research on versus another? Like you mentioned video games being the longest chapter and wrestling being a passion of yours. Those were probably kind of different to write about than maybe like a Jerry Springer section.
There was not a single topic in this book that was like super difficult, because I come in as a fan and as someone with like a lot of experience with them or familiarity with the topics before I even started doing it. Like I wrote my last book before this was on Nebraska politics. There was a lot of stuff about that was hard to approach and boring. But there is difference between the 6 main topics. The one that probably like I didn't know how the hell I would turn it into a whole chapter at one point was Beanie Babies, because they're interesting and there's a lot of articles about them, and there are a few documentaries, but like they're just toys, like they're just stuffed animals. The original source of the thing I'm writing about is so much less interesting than talk shows and pro wrestling and video games, which are pieces of media that like I've spent hundreds of hours engaging with. with like Beanie Babies, you're just writing about financial speculation and like everything that people did in reaction to Beanie Babies, which is a little different.
It also played out differently for people growing up in that era. Like I mean, I think we were all, especially you, me, Ross, were touched by like Beanie Baby mania that happened. Maybe less so for Zach. But there was a time where like my wife, who's I'm only 3 days older than, her dad has that kind of like, I'm gonna buy things that are going to make money later on, and like he got into the Beanie Babies, right? And so my wife has like core memories of her life where it was like on X day, whether it be Thursday or whatever, they would go to McDonald's and they would buy Happy Meals for Beanie Babies. Like that's like they would specifically, he would just be like, give me Happy Meals with no food, just like give me Beanie Babies, and he would go and collect. And she has these really strong memories of like being with him while he collected Beanie Babies. He's brilliant, right? So like he did not get stuck into the speculation. Like he got out of it when it started to collapse and before it got collapsed, and got into more long-lasting collections like G.I. Joe's. But so it's definitely like, but still like memory with her. Where for me, Beanie Babies were like cool. I have like fondness for Beanie Babies that I personally owned, that when I like found them or see them, I'm like, oh sweet, I love this Beanie Baby. And Ty is still like big business today still. Like they are still producing Beanie Babies, they're still producing plush. They don't have the mania behind them, but they're still like huge.
Well, they still exist, but their revenue is a fraction of what it would have been in the late 90s.
But they're not at risk of bankruptcy, right?
No, they're like in all sorts of stores still.
Yes, they are. I'm familiar with at least one chain that has them, pretty prevalent, but that's only based on where I work. But
well, Beanie Babies have pivoted now. When they're, whether it's at like retail pharmacies or wherever, they do, it's all licensed stuff. And before
it's
they
all
did no
licensed, yeah, Bluey.
Oh yeah, like Funko,
yeah,
which had its own speculative market for a while.
Like we got like SpongeBob Beanie Babies, Spider-Man Beanie Babies at my house for my kids. That's different than in the
well.
they're definitely Bluey Beanie Babies. There has to be.
Marvel, Captain America, it's all licensing now. Very, very few independent properties, and if it's independent, then it's probably like some like keychain or something like that.
But like they didn't do, like when they were big though, those were all original characters. There's just like a dog or like a rainbow shaped chameleon or something. It wasn't based off of a IP of a movie or a TV show.
The what is it, the Princess Diana bear or whatever it was,
that one, people lost their damn minds over that bear. That Princess Di bear was going for like over $10,000 in '98.
Yeah, just like $1 million now.
Well, there's that famous was a newspaper photo of the couple getting divorced, and it's them sitting in court dividing their Beanie Babies with each other. It's I think it's interesting to look at Beanie Babies and that speculative market from the 90s and see it reflected today in things like grading video games and like
Pokemon cards, TCG
cards
stuff.
And they're the whole like grading market with games for a while back in like early 2020 into 2021 was just people being like, you gotta grade your games because they're going to be worth millions, and it's like, no, like it immediately dipped like right after like what 2023 I think is when the bubble burst.
Before that it was NFTs.
Oh yeah, NFTs. It's that whole, what was the Tulip Mania, the first speculative thing since the 1600s. It's always something, right?
Well, right now we're seeing like trading cards, right? So like Pokemon, and specifically now it's funny because Pokemon goes in like these spurts where like it's really big and then it kind of goes in the back burner. There's still like big collectors and then it's really big again. And I feel like it was really big when we were kids because it was coming in and dominating the market and was everywhere. And now it's nostalgic and like scalpers and gamblers essentially that are buying, like they've turned it into like where they're with the limited releases and the valuable cards. Like it's really, these Beanie Babies kind of also very similar. It's really buying in a very like gambler mindset and a money mindset first versus enjoying the product itself. It's interesting to watch like nostalgic items become monetized around gambling and scalping and stuff like that. Not interesting in a good way.
Well, maybe the beanies will come back, even if Pokemon cards are back. Beanie Babies and Pokemon, when they had their like original fad around the same time.
Yeah, you can break out the collection. It can be Bring it out. We have like
People
a
are gonna
bin of them
dust off their
somewhere.
attics. Yeah, there you go.
It's like a bin of Legos and Beanie Babies is what we have up in our attic.
They've been doing with comics too recently. There's been the variant covers, but they've been like doing like blind bag comics where you like buy a comic but you don't know what it looks like until you open it and it's a variant cover. DC's been doing that with one of their new runs, and I was like talking with one of my friends and I was like, that's so silly.
Target alone is going to do $1 billion in trading cards. It's a significant amount of money.
To kind of reword one of my questions, do you get a sense of deja vu, like seeing stuff today after you've written this book, like and lived through it? But I mean, like especially with the research you've had to do into the culture of the 90s and then just living through now. I mean, even just with some of the names that have probably popped up when you're doing research on the 90s, like the president who was a big figure in the 90s, or a bunch of the stuff that's been going on today feels almost reflective of that time.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the X-Files where no one really dies. Even if they die, you think they're dead. They come back. Like the cigarette smoking man, like should have died like 4 times. Like he's blown up by Apache helicopters. But like even when they did the new seasons recently, he's back. So I feel like in the fads and trends and biggest personalities of the 90s don't ever die. Like you see them resurfaced in new and strange ways. Even though Jerry Springer is actually dead, the Jerry Springer show lives on. Just like go on Twitter and look at the way people bitch at each other. You know, it's the Jerry Springer show.
Oh yeah. With games in particular, you said that the section on games in your book is one of the largest sections. You'd focus on it in part 6 titled Level Up. Was there a particular game from that era that you particularly love? A game that really, like, when you're revisiting with this book, really brought back a lot of strong memories?
Yeah, and I'll focus on a game specifically from 1999. There's a lot of games in the 90s that I love. That's my favorite era of gaming. Probably you guys too, if you grew up then. I think people love the games that they grow up with. But in 99 is when the first Tony Hawk Pro Skater game came out, and I played the hell out of that game, and it was just the soundtrack it is burned into my memory. You know, like if I hear any of those songs like on a Spotify playlist, it makes me excited, and like almost all the time I spent listening to those particular songs, like such as like Superman by Goldfinger, like that was from me dicking around free skating on that game. It really connected with me that like a piece of music 25 years later makes me think of that game, and just all the features that it had that I feel like sports games didn't have at the time. It was just so ahead of its time, and the controls were like fantastic. Like you could catch on to that game pretty quickly.
I was thinking about Pro Skater recently because I was listening to Superman and I was like, I love this song, but I need to listen to it in a way that's much more nostalgic for me. So I pulled up the like N64 bit crushed version that's just like heavily compressed. I was like, this is nostalgia.
That game was amazing, and what it's also like, it made me want to get like, I was like very straight and narrow type of kid, and I would play that and I'd be like, man, this seems like fun. Like this would be just like something that I would want to do. No, I should never be on a skateboard, not because I'm straight and narrow, but because I'm like very, very clumsy and I will hurt myself. I was just like, this is just the greatest thing. And I feel like Pro Skater came out right around the same era where it was like you had like 1080 on for snowboarding and stuff like that, and Wave Racer for jet skiing, and it was just like this like extreme sports era with like extreme with a giant X and a Z and all that stuff. I'm very glad I got to grow up with those games at the end of the day. Like they just exposed me to things that I would never be able to do or want to do in a way that made them fun and enjoyable, which is part of what like is fun about a video game. And I think it's sometimes I feel like I should go back and just play some of those older games, because I feel like the games that I play nowadays tend to be a bit more grounded in things that I feel like I'm interested in versus things that I had to be interested in, right? We are like in this day and age in an era of too much choice. I think if I have the choice, I'm like, I have a choice. I'm going to play a adventure mystery game because that's what I think I'm interested in. But when I was a kid, I just played what people people had, they're like, we have 3 games. One of them's Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So it's like, all right, throw that in. It's just like, and that's what you played. One friend that we visit had Tony Hawk Pro Skater and like Rogue Squadron or something like that. And that was like,
both good games, though.
Yeah.
great games. But like, if I had unlimited options and like the sea of images that I could choose from, I may never have picked them, right? And that's like kind of the forced fun that we were really had to play through, because the options were just more limited unless you were like a billionaire or whatever.
Yeah. Pro Skater is such a fun game, though. It's I like that it's from that era where it has elements that are kind of grounded with its aesthetic, but it's still very video gamey in the sense of it like you get to grind on an airplane. You can't really do that
you
in
like
real
jump
life.
through windows and shit, like
jump
off of a school building that's 40 feet in the air, like the best pro skater would still break the shit out of their ankles doing all this stuff.
Exactly. But it still had that like aesthetic of realism with the sound effects and the textures. Like it didn't look cartoony when you were playing it, and I think that it was kind of like the perfect suspension of disbelief that you needed for a video game, especially like Pro Skater, where you could really feel like you were doing the things you were doing, despite doing them ridiculously.
And
it
really,
I was just saying about being too cartoony. I don't know if you ever played the game Street Skater.
Yeah.
That game, I feel like, went too far, where it was an okay game, but it just feels like kind of like Looney Tunes meets Skate. Not that I became an X Games fan through Pro Skater. I wasn't like someone who was into extreme sports before this, but then like just even watching a little bit, I'm like, the Street Skater, like it just it doesn't have the right balance that Tony Hawk game had.
Well, it was a good blend with that era of like VHS trading skate videos, that time period where people would film on with a small camcorder and then share it with their friends, and you had these radical videos out there, and like that segued into like the early 2000s with Rocket Power on Nickelodeon. Which kind of followed up on that whole idea. It almost was like Pro Skater came out at like the perfect moment to really just like capitalize on all of the skating stuff going on at the time.
And they had a great front man, right? Tony Hawk is definitely someone who Pro Skater changed his life.
The Patriot State of the
90s. It changed his life a lot. I think there's an interview where he credits a lot of his success on Pro Skater.
There's a documentary about the video game that he goes in depth on it.
Because it's definitely something that for sure changed his life. And I think having him as a front man for the game really helped, led credibility to the game since of his experience in the entire like culture, as well as making sure it sold it to people who were in the culture, and then also just somebody with his kind of star power being able to support the game and push it forward really helped the game out to be where it is today, where it influenced people who weren't in the skate culture. But I know Tony Hawk, I could probably pick him out of a lineup, right? And it's just like it's just something that like I definitely could pick out like 90s Tony Hawk from a lineup.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you heard the story about him. It was like at the airport getting his ID checked, and the person was like, "Oh, Tony Hawk, like the skater, right? Wonder what he's up to." And Tony's like, "Yeah, this."
Just trying to get through security.
They had fortuitous timing too, though, because 99 is when that game came out, and that's the year that he landed the 900 at the X Games.
Yeah.
So like he's kind of at the peak of his
you can't
ability.
Go far, you can't go higher.
Yeah.
They grabbed him right at the right time.
Exactly. They got so much like free goodwill and marketing out of that the sport and the video game made each other more popular like at that moment.
Now, in your actually initial email to us, you listed a couple other games that you're a fan of from the time period, like Twisted Metal and GTA.
Yep. Twisted Metal.
Was that something that you like? I guess when you're playing games at the time, did you gravitate more toward like games like Twisted Metal and games like because it's almost like it's like a sports game in its own right, except a different kind of sport, right?
A blood sport, I guess.
Yeah.
I kind of played everything, although I didn't play a ton of RPGs. That's probably what I played the least, but I liked fighting games, shooting games, racing sports. I guess the competition would probably be what's the most similar between Twisted Metal and a wrestling game.
Kind of like couch games too, like especially with they're group games that
a lot of those games
played with.
Yeah, those games I listed, that's a good point. You look at them, those games almost all have multiplayer, and I spend a lot of my time playing video games with my friends. So that's what would be fun about Twisted Metal 2 or Twisted Metal 3 or these other games is going through them together. But the game is my very favorite ones, though, and I don't even know if I put them on the list in the initial email, ended up being those open-ended world ones like GTA. But that's those aren't quite as social, and that I feel like that style of games was around in the 90s. The first GTA came out in 97, but they really came into their own in the early thousands.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had a buddy of mine who owned kind of like the latest and greatest systems, but he could only buy car games because his family was pretty conservative in regards to like the things that he could buy. He could only buy games that had cars. So he owned like Rush 2049. We could play Twisted Metal because there was cars. So there was as long as he could get by that there was cars, then we could play car games. Lo and behold, Grand Theft Auto 3 had a car. And
it's got auto right in the title.
It's got auto right in the title. And so he got Grand Theft Auto 3, and me and him together, like, just trading off, like, you play this section, I play this section, beat the entire Grand Theft Auto 3 game. Like, I'm pretty sure we beat it in, like, a couple of sleepovers. We were obsessed with it when we just played through all of it. It was just so great being able to play. Like, the only exposure, right? I was a PC guy. I've always been a PC guy. Didn't come to PC for a very, very long time. But I saw all of Grand Theft Auto 3 either as a co-pilot, as it were, and it was just a very funny kind of way. I talked to him years and years later, and he told me that the only reason we were able to play it was because his parents were so strict. And I was like, I never knew that, because like he was just really good at getting like there was like a BMX XXX game that was like, I forgot what it was called, but I'm pretty sure it was like BMX XX or something like that.
Was it based on like the Dave Mirra engine?
It was like bicycling or like sport trick BMX.
Yeah, like Dave Mirra, like
the But because there was racing in it, he was able to get that game. Could not get like a shooter game. Could not get any type of like shooting game. But Twisted Metal was fine. GTA was fine. Which there was shooting in GTA. But
and in Twisted Metal,
also
you
racing.
got rockets.
There's also shooting
all sorts of
from the
cars.
There's a lot in Twisted Metal beyond shooting.
Twisted Metal scared the ever-living shit out of me when I was a kid, because we were like, let's play this game, and then we watched the intro. We were like, oh no, let's not play this game. We were terrified of Twisted Metal. It was such a scary game. And then
the cutscenes were especially Twisted Metal Black then too. It was like, this is a horror movie.
That's what we played. Yeah. It was a tough game to get through. It was scare children.
Those games are some technical marvels also, just by the like looking at like GTA 3 as like when you first play it, it feels like this massive game, and then you look at all they had to do to like get it to feel massive by doing different like techniques and stuff. I know Silent Hill, which I think came out in 99 as well, I had to do the whole thing with the fog, and I was playing through Silent Hill just a few years ago, and I was like, with the fog the game feels massive, but when you look at the map it is so small. Like you are so confined in that game to where you can go, but you feel like you can go everywhere because the fog makes it feel like that. And I really like that for that era of games that just feel larger than they are. I think that's something really cool. I mean, games today, of course, can just be large.
Then you have a 200 gig game.
Yeah, but it was almost a bit more novel when it was like could fit on a CD that was going into your PlayStation.
Yeah, I still feel like games today they're like just lazy with the amount of like space that they take up versus like just trying to be as optimized as possible, like where they had to be. Like developers in the 90s and before, they had to optimize their games to be able to fit on limited space based on cartridges, CDs, DVDs, so on and so forth. But once it became all digital and your hard drive was the space, then games just got bigger and bigger.
Well, thank you, Ross, for coming out to the show and for talking to us about your memories of the 90s and your book. Before we close everything off, we do like to do what's called our Retro Rewind, where we talk about older games we've recently played and whether or not they hold up. What's a game you've recently played that's an older game? It could be we usually say our cutoff is 10 years, Seth?
Yeah, 10 years.
A game that's at least 10 years old, and how has it held up in the time that you've played it?
So I played very classic game here, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I was playing that too long ago.
That's a big Sonic head.
And so I play. I just have an emulator, and yeah, I think it still holds up. It's fun as hell. I love the speed. I just the colors make my eyes glaze over a little bit. I'm like, this is just like a kaleidoscope of fun here. But what I will say though is that game used to seem so intuitive and like easier when I was a kid because I played it, and like now like I lose so many guys like even on the second stage. I can't make it halfway past right now.
Oh yeah.
You can blame it on emulation.
I can blame it on emulator. I think I just suck now.
Well, I feel like there's almost like a brain chemistry change because I remember being able to do Emerald Hills Act 1 and 2 and get all 7 Chaos Emeralds, and I can't do that anymore. Like I can barely get through the special stages. Like the special stages can be rough on Sonic 2, especially when you get into like special stage 5 or 4 or 5 when it starts really speeding up, and like you got the rings, you're down to like one. You have one more ring, you grab it, and then you immediately get hit by a bomb around the corner. You lose everything. Or worse, you're at that like one last ring, and you're like, oh, there's definitely another set of rings coming up, and then it's the goal, and it says too bad, and it gives you the big thumbs down, and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm a huge Sonic 2 fan. One of my favorite games, just period.
Have you checked out Sonic Mania, Ross?
No, but apparently it sounds like something I should.
Yeah,
Sonic Mania is great. Yeah.
Sonic Mania is like some guy who's like a Sonic hacker put it together and then got Sega's approval to put it out.
They hired him on, yeah.
Yeah, they hired him on because he was so good at hacking the Sonics. And it's truly like a spiritual successor to like, I would say it's more of a kid to Sonic 3 in regards to like the styling. But Zach, you're more familiar with Sonic Mania than I am. It's very good.
It combines, it has levels from like all the 3 original Sonic games revitalized. So like you play through Green Hill, it feels the same as when you first played Sonic 1, and all of a sudden things start changing. It's like way massive, and they have different paths that you can take now and all different stuff going on. I think the way it was described to me by someone that was talking about it was, it feels like what would happen if they made a Sonic game for the Saturn that wasn't just like Sonic Jam, where it was just a collection of games. If they actually made a Sonic game for the Saturn and they used the Saturn to like its complete like limit on what that game could have been as a 2D platformer.
Yeah,
it really feels like a 32-bit or even 64-bit 2D Sonic game, like really pushing it to its limit. But yeah, Sonic 2 is great. Sonic Mania is great. Sonic 2, actually, fun fact, 2 days before the recording of this episode was the anniversary of Sonic 2's release. November 24th, 1992 was when it came out in North America. Well, Seth, what about you? What's your retro rewind? It better be a Sonic game now.
It's not. It's I've been playing Heretic, Shadow of the Serpent Riders, developed by Raven Software and published by id Software. Heretic, Shadow of the Serpent Riders is an expanded version of the original Heretic game. The original Heretic game came out in 1994 and is a first-person shooter that was made in a modified Doom engine. It was also released like Doom in a shareware version that you had to mail in to get the full version of the game, because that was a fun thing you had to do in the 90s. Shadow of the Serpent Riders would go on to be the retail release in 1996, and anyone who did mail in got a free patch from Raven on their website that you could download. If you had the shareware unlocked version, you could download the Shadows of the Serpent Riders patch, and it would bring your copy of Heretic up to the expanded released version in the event and get the expanded content. It's Heretic by itself is a great game. We should probably do an episode on Heretic and its sequel Hexen in some later iteration of this pod. If you're not familiar with them, they are fantasy Doom games that incorporate the ability to look up and down, which is new to the Doom engine. And you can also manipulate your inventory a little bit, but its core functionality is Doom, where you're fighting fantasy monsters with magical items like wands and magical crossbows that act like shotguns, and you also get Emperor Palpatine lightning hands, which is pretty fun. It's like the chainsaw, so instead of you get the butt end of your wand as a punching thing, and then instead of a chainsaw you get just lightning hands. It's fun. It holds up because it's Doom engine, so like anything anything on the Doom engine or slightly iterative off the Doom engine pretty much always holds up because it just works, and it is what it is. But it's Heretic it's great. It's a fun, if you want to play more Doom but don't want to play Doom, you can always play Heretic and Hexton and be able to play and fight other demons, because there's still demons in Heretic.
It's just medieval demons.
They're just medieval demons.
Were you playing that using ExoWin, or were you playing it?
I was using ExoWin. And Ross, if you're not familiar, if our audience is not familiar, there is a service website thing called ExoWin. It is a group of folks who are archiving everything from DOS, Windows 3 points, like Windows 3X and Windows 9X. They're starting Windows 9X now. There's a couple of other versions of it, but what they're doing is they are using a software called Launchbox and integrating their like back-end games and ROM sets and emulators to Launchbox, and then mapping it so that they're acting as Launchbox platforms. And every game on DOS, it's like 6,000 some odd software, not just games, but like if you want old DOS software, it's there. Every game and software on Windows 3X, and they're up through 96 they're up through 96 for Windows 9X. And it's just like everything that there is a Discord, and there's like a list of like missing games. The missing games are far smaller percentage of games that they have. I was looking at them because I maintain all three of them. They have to live on my network attached storage because we were looking at the size recently, and it was 1 terabyte what it takes up all three of them together. So it's like 600 gigs for DOS, 240 gigs for the Windows each, and that's uncompressed, non-downloaded installs. So it's a sizable investment, but if you ever want to play any DOS, Windows, or Windows 3 or Windows 9X game, I definitely recommend ExoDOS. It's a cool service. The community's really great. I've talked to some of their staff, and they're just really great people, and they're obviously fans and archivists of the past. So definitely something if you're interested in more retro style stuff. And it's great because you don't have to fiddle with anything either. So it's all they do some like magic on the back end to get like especially with Windows 9X, because it's a lot of Voodoo graphics card games that are just completely incompatible with modern systems, and they do a lot of like fiddling to get the Voodoo card to work basically. And I don't know what they do, but it works. So you can play Mech Warrior 2 if you want. It's fun. The only reason I asked Seth is because on Steam right now for $10 you can get Heretic plus Hexen, which is the Night Dive Studio release. Oh, that's fun.
Through the Kex engine, and that is well worth the money, I think. So if you want to play Hexen and Heretic. I also was playing something through ExoWin. I was actually playing The Incredible Toon Machine, the sequel to Sid and Al's Incredible Toons, part of the Incredible Machine series, which Seth and I had, I think, Sid and Al's growing up. But it's a great game. I mean, it's basically just Rube Goldberg game, like contraptions that you build. Incredible Toon Machine is more of cartoony. It's like Tom and Jerry-esque, though it's Rob Paulson is the voice of the mouse. His name's Sid, and I don't know who's doing the voice of Al. It might be Jim Cummings, but he sounds like he's doing a Frasier impression. So he just I was like, is this Kelsey Grammer just looking for a little extra money by doing a very obscure Windows game? And I was like, no, I think it's just Jim Cummings doing a Kelsey Grammer voice, because it almost sounds like Sideshow Bob, the voice he's doing. But it's a fun game where you're just building out contraptions or finishing contraptions to get them to work. And yeah, I mean, it definitely holds up if you like that type of puzzle game. And it's just a fun time. I like the music a lot. It's all MIDI renditions of like classical music, so it's always good. It's got that lovely MIDI aesthetic. But yeah, so with that, Ross, we definitely want to thank you again for being on the show and for talking to us and for telling us all about your book. I'm excited to pick it up. I think it sounds like a great book, and we'll be sure to put the link and everything in the description so our listeners can pick it up if they want to. But before we close everything off, do you mind telling our listeners where to find you, your socials, your website, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at Ross Benish rossbenes.com, ROSSBENES. I'm also on Twitter, same handle, and LinkedIn. I don't post a ton though, but you will find me in those places, and you can get the book wherever books are sold online. Bookshop.org is probably the best place. You can go to the University Press of Kansas webpage, or you can use Amazon if you absolutely must.
I like bookshop.org. It's a fun website.
Yeah, they are, they got a good mission.
Zach, are you familiar with bookshop.org?
I'm not, but I will give it a look up.
You essentially pick your bookstore that you want to associate your account with, and then they give a percentage of the book sales to that bookstore. So there's a local store that we frequent in the area that's our bookshop.org, and we essentially, the website's branded that store, and the sales go to them, which is it's a great mission and a better way to buy books versus Amazon.
Awesome. Well, again, we'll put your website and any links and stuff in the description as needed. But Seth, do you want me to close off the episode?
It was Jim Cummings, just as an FYI.
Oh, okay, good. So it was Jim Cummings doing a Frasier impression. Wonderful. I'm glad Winnie the Pooh has such a range in vocal talents. And Dr. Robotnik, I guess. I'll close it off. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. If anyone wants to reach out to us, you can do so by emailing us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Find us on social media, Classic Gaming Brothers, CG Brothers Pod. Also, we're available at www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Seth, am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Zach.
I've been Seth.
I've been Ross.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers and Ross.
Ross. That's right.